Friedrich Merz, l'argent seul ne suffit pas pour la défense de l'UE. Rejoignez Friedrich Merz alors qu'il décrit le rôle de l'Allemagne dans l'UE lors de ses remarques d'ouverture.
And we're looking forward to working with you. Chancellor, thank you very much, dear Ursula, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for coming. I'm very happy that today, on the 9th of May 2025, that I can visit on the third day in office. I can visit the European institutions as the German Federal Chancellor. I have the privilege, as the Chancellor, to belong to a European institution for the second time in my life, this time the European Council. As many of you know, over 35 years ago, I started my career in the European institutions in the European Parliament. So in a way, I'm coming home to Brussels, coming home to Europe. I'm looking forward to getting started. I know it's important for us to cooperate in Europe. Germany needs to play a strong role, an active role in the European Union, and the German federal government is going to do so because the challenges that we face are big challenges and we can only meet those challenges together. And if you look at the founding documents of the European political project, you will see that Robert Schuman, the former French foreign minister, 75 years ago today, he said that the integration of the coal and steel industry wasn't just an economic project, but in fact it was a deeply political project to finally get over the old rivalities between France and Germany by way of uniting their key industries, which were coal and steel back then. And so now we build on that continuous integration of industries by way of the European single market, which arose out of Brussels and Strasbourg, which I was able to play my part in helping to build. And I can feel this continuity of European development here, and I feel it is my duty to help this story move forward. And the Commission President said the European single market is not really quite as far along the path as it should be, and I've read the letter report, and I really have taken that as something that we need to get cracking with. The Draghi report also is another one which is very important, just as important as the Delors report from the 1980s, which were used as the foundation of our integration work back then. You mentioned the main points. Perhaps I can just speak from the German perspective. Strengthening EU industry's competitiveness is the central project for the coming years that we will focus on. Creating the right framework conditions to help European industry become successful is a central task, and we need to cut back European regulation. And so I'm pleased to see that we're going to get stuck into cutting back European bureaucracy and red tape with the omnibus regulations, and that is something that the German government will support you with, and we will make suggestions as to how to move forward, because we hope that we'll be able to repeal certain directives. The CSDDD directive is one I always like to quote, the one on European supply chains, and we will be repealing the German law that was transposed on the basis of that directive. So that's just one example amongst many. We do need fundamental modernisation and better framework conditions in the European Union. Let me also talk about the Capital Markets Union. In Europe, we talked far too long about liability and not enough about the integration of the capital markets. And I agree with the President of France. As you know, I wasn't just in Paris this week, but also I went to Warsaw. I was the first German Chancellor who, on his first day in office, on the first full day of his mandate, went to not just to Paris but also to Warsaw. It was important for me to send that signal to say that we're not just going to be cooperating with our biggest neighbour to the west, but also our biggest neighbour to the east on an equal footing. Now, there were a number of conflicts. The largest of those, of course, is the one in Ukraine, and I'm grateful that the overwhelming majority of heads of state and government in the EU agree that we stand on the side of Ukraine, and we will continue to support Ukraine in its fight against the Russian war of aggression. And we need to make progress on trade policy as well. That is another big challenge that we face since the change of government in the United States. As you know, I had a long phone call yesterday evening with President Trump, and we talked about these two topics as well, about the war in Ukraine. We support the American President's initiative to call for a 30-day ceasefire, which would begin today. That is going to be a test of how seriously Putin takes such agreements, not just today, of course, which is being celebrated in Moscow as a victory day, but also moving forward. We'll see whether it's possible to turn a 30-day ceasefire into real peace negotiations. And the ball is very much in Moscow's court, nowhere else. We agree here in Europe, we agree to support Ukraine. The United States also supports Ukraine. Now the ball is in Moscow's court, and only there. They need to show the government in Russia is serious about peace in Ukraine. Trade policy is important. Let me just say now that we fully support quickly ratifying the Mercosur agreement. I agree with the Commission President that Europe also needs to seek out other trade partners in the world. There are many who are interested right now in working with Europe towards trade agreements in this difficult geopolitical situation, and that includes the United States. I congratulated President Trump on his agreement with the United Kingdom yesterday, but he cannot pick off individual EU member states one by one. We're all members of the EU, and therefore, trade competence has been passed on completely to the European Commission. We negotiate as one. So the next trade partner for the EU is not Germany, Poland, or another member state. It's Europe. It's the European Union. And I hope we will be able to make progress in lowering tariffs and in the long term to a trade agreement. I regret the fact that TTIP never saw the light of day. We ought to have achieved that, and we would now know how valuable it would have been. But that's spilt milk now. Let's move on. Technological standards are just as important as tariffs, and often I think they're underestimated in their importance. I would like us to offer to our American partners mutual recognition of technical standards, because I think there's a lot of potential there if we want to open markets, which we don't, and it's a potential we're not really using enough. So, last but not least, European Union's defence capacity is important as well. Of course, financial resources need to be made available. The EU is talking about the fiscal pact, extending that, and in Germany we've made use of our national debt rules. We changed the German constitution, and we've made it possible to have defence spending go over and above the 1% of GDP, regardless of the debt break. But money is not the answer on its own. We need simplified standards as well. We also need simplified systems, adapted standards, and we also need to make sure that money we spend individually could be pooled into a European budget, because we would achieve economies of scale that way by simplification, standardization, and economies of scale. And without that, it's not just enough to talk about money alone. So I'm looking forward to further discussions with the Commission in Council, and on a day like today, it's a day where we celebrate 75 years of the Schuman Declaration, but I think it's a day which calls us to get working as well. The European Union is, of course, the most successful project for peace and prosperity for the European continent, and I, as the German Federal Chancellor, will work to see it succeed together in